Okay. The number one issue we really should explain, and we'll get back to it towards the end if we go full circle, is the special significance of Purim during a leap year. Right? It's not for naught that Adar, which is the month of Purim, is the one that gets doubled in order to equalize, the solar cycle with the lunar cycle, and it is innately connected for Purim to Purim, as we will explain. Now, it's well known, it's a Tikkunei Zohar, that Yom Kippurim is a Yom Kippurim. It's Yom Kippur almost as holy as Purim. And there's a lot that about these two holidays that, on the one hand, they're inverses of each other, total inverses. That the Yom Kippur, we prepare for it by eating on the 9th of Tishrei. Right? It's a mitzvah to eat all day, right? And we fast on Yom Kippur itself, right? 24-hour fast. And Purim is the exact opposite. We fast Tanis Esther in preparation for Purim, and Purim is a day of eating. It's something that needs. We have to look into this a little bit, understand this. It's how they're like inverses of each other. Now, there are two things that they have in common, one thing that they have in common in the same way, is that Chazal tell us there is one lashon Chazal. There's the well-known one that everyone agrees to, that in the future all the Yomim Tovim that we know are going to be annulled, and the one Yom Tov that we will keep is Purim. There is that is in Chazal, and the Rambam brings it. The Rambam brings it again in Hilchos Megillah. This is halacha. This is understood to be normative Judaism, that we believe in the future the Moados will be in this battle except for Purim. But there is another lashon Chazal that there's one other exception to this, and that's Yom Kippur. So we'll have in the future Yom Kippur and Purim, which is another further common denominator between the two that we would like to explore. But then there's how they're similar in a dissimilar type of way. Right? These two holidays break the golden rule. Right? The golden rule that's true for all holidays, and true of, central to Judaism itself, and that's really the golden mean. So the Rambam speaks about this at great length, that Judaism preaches the golden path, the middle way, right? Not to be extreme, not in one way and not the other way. And he explains that the way halacha is structured, halacha prohibits certain things and allows other things, and if you would view the halacha as a whole, you'll see it preaches a balanced lifestyle. Nothing is totally usher, nothing is totally mutter, right? And it's in everything that we do. And we know, a person shouldn't afflict themselves and deny the body what it needs, and that's why the Nazir, for example, one of the korbanos that he brings when he finishes Nazir is at Osham. Now, Osham is a type of sin offering. So the Gemara says, "Al shetzir atzmo min hayayin." Now he needs atonement for denying himself wine. Right? Wine is something that the Rebbe Shalom wants people to have. It used to be a staple item. Right? And of course, overindulgence is also so. Asceticism is considered to be wrong, and overindulgence is wrong, and we have to go down the middle path. And interestingly enough, our Yomim Tovim are structured that way. There's a halacha learned out of psukim, because one pasuk says atzeres la'Hashem Elokecha, another pasuk says atzeres tzia lachem. So we reconcile to say chetzio la'Hashem, chetzio lachem, and that's the halacha in Hilchos Yom Tov. Right, in Rambam and in Shulchan Aruch, you're supposed to divide the day of Yom Tov into half. Right, the way to theoretically do it right is to daven netz, and then after davening learn all the way until chatzos, daven mincha, and then party. That's the way around. Party for the rest of the day till nightfall, and that's the way it's brought down in the Rambam. That's it's supposed to be 50-50. Chetzio la'Hashem, chetzio lachem. And like Judaism itself, that everything's supposed to be in a balance, half-half, right? Walk that tight wire, right? And here we have Yom Kippur, that it's these, and Purim, that they're off on extremes, right? Yom Kippur is a day like the body gets nothing. There's no lachem on Yom Kippur. And seemingly, if we wouldn't know better, and we'll have to explain how, there's almost no La Hashem on Purim. Right? So now the Vilna Gaon addresses this, and he says something very interesting that needs a greater observation. And he says, well, you have to look at the year as a whole, right? And really look at Yom Kippur and Purim as two halves of the same day. Right? So the Yom Kippur was the Chatzio LaHashem, and the Purim was the Chatzio Lachem. What is that? So in the grand picture, cosmically, it balances out. Right? And that's something which we'll have to analyze a little bit more. There's more to it than just the cute idea. So going back to it, so we mentioned that Vilna Gaon, let's mention another Vilna Gaon. That, and he's also going on this idea of, Purim and Yom Kippurim, and the common denominator between the two. And I remember we mentioned this in previous years. We know that the lunar cycle is 10 days shorter than the solar cycle. The lunar cycle, it's rounded up to 355 days. Gematria Shana, 355. Right? But we know that the solar cycle is 365 days. So the Vilna Gaon points out something very interesting. So when the new year comes in on Rosh Hashanah, now Rosh Hashanah is the first of Tishrei, so it's the new year on the lunar cycle, but the solar cycle lags behind by 10 days. Right? So something interesting about Aseret Yemei Tshuva is that it's a twilight zone, because on the lunar cycle it's the new year, on the solar cycle it's still last year, because the solar cycle until it makes a whole revolution, it's 10 days shorter. Right? The day that it catches up is on Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is where now the solar cycle is caught up. Right? And so therefore explains the Vilna Gaon that that's why you could still make up for last year during the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, because it's not fully the next year yet. So it's in between. It's part last year, and that's why you could still make amends, right, during the Aseret Yemei Tshuva. Right? And that process is finalized in Yom Kippur. That's when the gates are closed, because the solar cycle has caught up to the lunar cycle. Now it's fully next year. So last year is gone. There's no fixing it anymore. But also on the positive, there's an idea, which we're going to explain more in detail, that when the two cycles catch up, that's called reconciliation. Right? And that's called, as it were, healing, whatever's wrong, whatever rifts there are in our lives, and we'll discuss this more in just a minute. But he goes on to say something else. We have, so the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, those are the days of discrepancy between the two cycles, because the new year came in, 10 days earlier, with the lunar cycle, and 10 days later with the solar cycle. On the average, we have a leap year to reconcile, that the two cycles shouldn't deviate too much, and Pesach come out in the winter. Right? So every third year, on the average, is a leap year. So we add 30 days of Adar Sheni, right, to balance things out. Right, the 30 days, every 3 years, to make up for the 30-day discrepancy that accumulates in the course of 3 years. So he says an amazing thing. 3 sets of Aseret Yemei Tshuva produce Adar Sheni. So it's so amazing to think about. It means the whole Adar Sheni was made out of Aseret Yemei Tshuva. 3 sets of Aseret Yemei Tshuva. Those 3, which are the days of discrepancy. Those are the 30 days of Adar Sheni. All right, so before we go into all this, let's just raise a few more questions. We have to make things worse before we make them better. There's something about Amalek that we don't have with all our other enemies. The guy just won't go away. He just won't. Right, Milchama Hashem ba'Amalek midor dor was foretold from the first war already. We're just going to have to keep on dealing with him till the end of time. it almost makes you wonder why Purim is even legit. We're not done with him. Pesach is legit. We're done with the Egyptians. Hanukkah is legit. We're done with the Greeks, right? Et cetera, et cetera. This guy won't go away. He keeps on coming back. Why is that? And if he keeps on coming back, so what really does Purim mean? Yeah. So now, there's something about also this our war with Amalek, that there's a concept of Tunis. Tunis. First of all, in the very, very first war with him, right? So it was fought on two levels. Moshe Rabbeinu had his hands up, and Yoshua with the sword. So which we didn't have in our confrontation with all our other enemies. We have to have Moshe with his hands up, reminding us that everything is min hashamayim, and Yoshua with the sword. And why was that necessary? And if that was necessary, what supplements from Moshe Rabbeinu that role in future wars with Amalek? Right, like we had in days of Shaul. Like who's the figure with the hands up? Right? Right? And then there's there's that Tunis, but there's also the very fact that Purim, is another thing that makes it break rank with all the other holidays, that there are 2 days of Purim, not Misafek, Bavadai, Purim de Prozim and Purim de Mukafim. Right? There's Purim for these people and Purim for these people. Right? It's not. So we don't have such a by the other holidays. It's if we keep 2 days Yom Tov, it's just because we have a suffix and Chutzach, which day is the real. No, over here, no. There's Purim for the Prozim, there's Purim for the Mukafim, and Esther was she wanted this. She steered her. She asked, "What did the king ask her? What do you want?" That I want one more day. One more day for Jews in Shushan, and that's what made Shushan Purim. This was like by design. They wanted to steer directly into this, that Purim should be, 2 days. Right? It comes out in this month of Mazel Dagim, plural, fish, right? Multiple. Right? So now the Gemara says something very interesting, that when Haman threw the lots, right, and it came up on Adar, right? Right? So it came up on Adar, he was overjoyed. Right? This is unbelievable. Right? It says, right? Adar, day Moshe Rabbeinu died. Mar says that he forgot about the fact Moshe Rabbeinu was born then also. No. All right, so he sees one side of the picture. There's another side? And same thing. He says, Mazel Dugim, fish swallow. I'm going to swallow the Jewish people. Right? Yeah, so, but he said, fish swallow and get swallowed. You're not the fish that's going to swallow. You're the fish that's going to get swallowed. Right? So it's very interesting. He sees just one side of the picture. And now, what is the lots that he threw? What's it called? Hipil Pur, Hua Grofei Haman. And what's the holiday called? Purim, Al Shema Pur. It should be called Pur. Either of us says. Again, double, Purim. He sees Pur. He sees only one side. It's Purim. The idea is like this. When Amalek came for the first time, it was after Am Yisrael was, they were thirsty. Moshe Rabbeinu had to hit the rock and give them the water. So it says, that it was called Masa Meriva al Nasosim Hashem Leimor Hayesh Hashem Bekirbeinu Im Oyin. Right? They as it were, they tested Hashem, and they asked, "Is Hashem in our midst or nothing?" Right? So it doesn't say Yeshem B'Kirbeinu Olo. Right? They didn't deny the existence of God. Who just took them out of Egypt? Who just parted the Red Sea for them? Right? They just got water miraculously from a rock. Right? They weren't denying the existence of God. Right? So the Zohar says something very interesting. And he says, the idea of, yesh and ayin, right? These two terms, that we talk about yesh me'ayin. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, yesh, what is me'ayin, out of nothing. Right? The term me'ayin means out of nowhere. Right? So he said, Esa einai me'el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Right? From where will my help come? Ezri me'im Hashem, Oseh Shemayim V'aretz. If God could create heaven and earth, so He could create a solution for you. You don't see where the help is going to come from, but if He could make heaven and earth, then He could also find a solution for whatever your predicament is. Right? When you're in a situation of ayin, right, you don't know where to turn, right? So there's only one thing to do: bitachon. Right? After everything's in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? And then there's something called yesh, right? Yesh is that what I'm able to do, what's in my grasp. Yesh, what I have. I have the capacity to do something about the problem, and that's in other words, that's what we call hishtadlus. Right? And there's the perceived conflict between bitachon and hishtadlus. When do you have bitachon? When do you make hishtadlus? Right? Which is it? It would be easier if it would just be just one way, right? Just always have bitachon, right? Or just always make hishtadlus. And this is like what's most chagrining and frustrating is which when. Right? So so Am Yisrael in the desert, they were frustrated. They didn't know. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu ayin. They were asking a very philosophical question, right? And that is, how are we supposed to cope? How are we supposed to conduct ourselves? Hashem b'kirbeinu. Hashem is in our midst. That means that like Hashem, will give you koach, right, to do and to accomplish and to fend for yourself. That's called Hashem b'kirbeinu. Hashem is in our midst, meaning we're doing, and He's helping us. Obviously, we always need His help. We're doing, and He's helping. All right, im oyin, or it's like me'ayin yavo Ezri. Right, we cannot do anything. Right, we're totally out of control, and it's all a state of me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Hashem Oseh Shemayim V'aretz. That was their question. Right, but this question is, but. The problem was, as the Zohar points out, they weren't asking in a inquisitive type of way. It wasn't, in the words of Zohar, ba'orach she'ela, asking, which should it be? How should we? It was ba'orach nisyona. It was in a way of al nasosam Hashem. They were testing, and they want to know, which is it? Is it this or is it that? Right? Like they decided that it has to be either or. Not true. That was their chet. They decided it has to be either or. Right? It's either yesh or ayin. Yesh or ayin. There was al nasosam. They wanted a test. They wanted a sign. Is it this way or that way? And that was their chet. Why does it have to be this way or that way? They're both true. The bitachon is true. The hishtadlus is true. And it's a sliding scale. You got to know when it's time for bitachon and when it's time for hishtadlus. That's challenges that there are in life. It's what's complicated about life. Right? Now, this is all rooted. Let's take a step back where this all starts from, because we have a lot of these things in life. Yesh and ayin are two general categories for all the different contradictions, seeming contradictions. That's the big mistake. The seeming contradictions that we contend with, that frustrate us. Right? There's the Yediyah Ubechira paradox, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows the future, of course He knows the future, and that's, there's a destiny, there's a plan. If there's a destiny, if there's a plan, and He has it all figured out, so do I really have free will? Mm-hmm. Right? There's the Hishtadlus and bitachon, question that we mentioned. And really, it's also the body-soul conflict. Truth also, right? We mentioned that this is the tight wire that Judaism walks. That is hard, frustrating, and it's pretty boring. The right balance, balance between the body and soul. It's like that short blanket. You cover your face, your feet are exposed, vice versa. Giving the body what it needs, giving the soul what it needs, and there's always the examples go on and on. As there are two tracks that need to be reconciled, whether it's body and soul, Yediyah, Bechira, Bitochen and Hishtadlus. There's these. It's like two different trains running at two different speeds, and how do you? And there's a root for all this. This God knew what He was doing. He did this on purpose, right? This is our big challenge, and the creation of tracks that run at two different speeds that have express all these multiple tracks. That was what He created purposely when He mitigated the moon, and made that cycle run differently than the solar cycle. That was the original creation of the idea that there are different tracks in reality, and you have to reconcile. But they're both real. They're both real. Right? It's not one or the other. They're both real, and then we're constantly working to reconcile them. And this is all rooted. The shurish for all this is the fact that the lunar cycle and the solar cycle don't run on the same speed. This was the original schism in reality that created, for all the different conflicts of these different tracks that need to be reconciled. So with this, you could already extrapolate and figure out that that's the big tikkun of the Ibur, right? Of the lunar, of the leap year, of putting the tracks back together. But this is the problem that there is. Right, the sun representing the body, right, and the moon representing the soul. Right, that the soul runs way ahead of the body as far as idealism and the right things to do. Just like the lunar cycle runs ahead of the solar cycle, but the moon doesn't shine so brightly, right? His soul doesn't shine so brightly and overcome us and overcome the world. It's all rooted over there. That's the big problem that creates chet, that creates sin. The word chet, has another meaning in Lashon Kodesh. It means to miss, like lahachti, right? Because the things are not aligned. You're not on target, right? It's the problem that creates sin. Right, is the fact that the different forces in reality all is meant for the good, but the different forces, they're not perfectly aligned, and there's conflicts of interest, and it goes create dilemmas, right? And that's where we fail, right? Even though all the different forces of reality were meant for the good, right? And that was the original thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did to test us. Right, and to make life challenging, and we're going to have to make tough decisions, right, is that original misalignment between the sun and the moon, the misalignment between the body and soul, the misalignment between different concepts like, bitochen and ishtadlus. It was all rooted there. Amalek likes that stuff. That's like, it creates the idea as if there's, conflict. Right, and he thrives in that, in that space, in that gap between the two tracks. That's where in the idea as if the two are not reconcilable. That's his, and he has no principles. Evil has no principles. He does it like any politician. Switch sides, whatever goes in. He'll switch from here to there, from there to here. He'll be a rightist, he'll be a leftist, whatever. You say, but it's a contradiction. Who cares? He rides whichever train. He could get people on board for it to go in his direction, right? If we'd close the gap between the tracks, he'd have no room to stand in reality. That's where he stands. He stands, as it were, the gap between the tracks. That area that's called Suffolk. That's why Amalek, Gematria, Suffolk. Right? We don't know how to reconcile these things, and that's where he is. And I'll tell you, you can't reconcile it. You can't. Irreconcilable. and you end up going off to one extreme. So you can understand, on a deeper level, on a much deeper philosophical level, the idea that Judaism preaches the golden mean of balance. Right? There's something very deep about it. It's not about being a boring individual. It doesn't do too much of anything. There is something very deep. That's the problem. It needs to be reconciled. That seems boring, right? And we'll talk about that. But the idea of the balance, the golden mean, right, is to understand there's a deep philosophical message there. It's all emes. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this track and he created that track, they both have to be true. They both have to be emes. They both have to be l'toiv. And therefore, I have to find a way to balance them. I have to reconcile them. And then and I guess if you have that type of cognizance in leading a balanced life, it'll be a little bit more exciting. I understand the tremendous tikkun that's being made, that you're trying to hold the different tracks of the cosmos together. Imagine two trains trying to get them to run at exactly the same speed, and to, work together. There's a very big tikkun in that. And that's why by no coincidence, as the Rambam points out, evil is to be found in extremes. That extreme, whether it's to the right, to the left, misplaced kindness to an extreme where it gets misplaced, or misplaced, judgment. The evil's in the extremes. The good is in that delicate balance, because the good is trying to hold everything together, trying to get the two trains, working at the same speed and working in the same direction. All right, there'll come a time when that'll be exciting, as we'll discuss. But the Amalek wants that type, he wants that schism. And that's why when Am Yisrael declared a schism, Amalek came. Then, immediately after that, Vayovo Amalek. They gave him a room to stand. Right? So now, Kadosh Baruch Hu said, you cook this thing, you're going to eat it. Right? You decided, right, that Hishtadlus and Bitachon are irreconcilable. I'm going to make you juggle the two at the same time. I'm going to make you, right? And that's exactly what happened in that first Milchama with Amalek, right? They had to juggle two contradictory things, contradictory in their own minds, right? Moshe Rabbeinu with the hands up, what does that represent? Surrendering everything to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My hands, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I could do nothing, right? And Am Yisrael is supposed to see that, and like the Mishnah says in Rosh Hashanah, when they see Moshe with hands up, that Mishabim Libam Lavin Shmai totally subjugate themselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, total annulment of self, and with that, with the sword, do the best they can. That's it. That's what that. Because you said, you drew a wedge between the Yesh and Ayin. You decided that the two cannot be both correct, right? No. I'm going to make you do it. Now, they had to carry a dual message. A guy in battle has to do his best and try to believe in himself, and that he, and yet at the same time watch Moshe with his hands up, remind you it's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're nothing. Yeah, you have to juggle those two at the time, because that's the way you have to defeat Amalek, because Amalek is in that wedge. Right? That's where he is. That's where the Yetzer Hara himself is. Right? That's it. The Yetzer Hara's his ammunition, right, is to point out the different contradictions that there are. Right? And say you got to choose. Is it this or it's that? And when you choose one over the other, you're out of balance. And out of balance is always bad. It's interesting, our biggest days of the year currently are Sukkot and Pesach. Right, these are our two big chagim, and they come out in Nisan and Tishrei respectively. And these 2 months are the months of balance. Not too hot, not too cold. The days are generally exactly 12 hours long, equally weighted. Moon time, which is nighttime, and sun time, 12 hours each. Balance. Right? Chodesh Av, bad month. It's an extreme. It's too hot. It's too hot. Days are too long. Right? What we have on the opposite end is Asara B'Teves, too cold. Right? That's when things are to the extreme and out of balance, that's bad. Because the very fact that you're making a schism in reality, that is what's bad. Schism. Right? That's why we'll jump ahead. By no coincidence, right, when Esther takes an active role to now correct the situation. So she says, Lech kenos es kol Yehudim, convergence. And this was a countermeasure to what Haman said to Achashverosh, Yesh lo am echad mefuzor meforad, scattered. Now, Amalek is mefuzor meforad. That's what they want. They want schism because he thrives on the conflict between issues. He thrives on conflict, on doubts and schism between issues, and he needs Am Yisrael that pulls the pieces together. He needs them fractured. So Esther says, "Lech kenosis kol Yehudim," and that was during Pesach, as we know. Then by the actual Milchama, right, on the 13th of Adar, the Megillah uses a term repeatedly, over and over, Nikalu Yehudim. The verb, again, the idea of banding together. Achdus, right? But the Achdus that there is in Klal Yisrael is not like the Achdus that there is by other nations. And this is the secret always when Yisrael is called Goy Echad Ba'aretz, the one nation. Right? Because the Achdus that there is in Klal Yisrael, that we were 12 tribes, by design 12 tribes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not, he didn't let Egypt become a melting pot of the 12 tribes. As when we left Egypt, the Yichus was established, and 12 tribes, and they had every group had their own degel, because the 12 tribes of Israel connected the 12 months of the year. Kayadua. Right? So much connected, the components of reality, and every shevet has to have its place in the cosmos, right? And the achdus that there is in Klal Yisrael is cosmic achdus, right? The tremendous tikkun that there is when we're ba'achdus is that the achdus that we have between us has a ripple effect on the whole cosmos. That all the different things in the cosmos that are running at different speeds come together. Right? And that's why, we spoke about Chodesh Av, the extreme month, Bais Nechra, because of Sinas Chinam. Because that's the problem. When Am Yisrael is not ba'achdus, neither is the whole world. So as a result, the Beis HaMikdash, which is point center that holds everything together, gets destroyed, and we get scattered, dispersed. So the Gemara says, Haman min Torah minayin hamina eitz. Right? Where does Haman come from? It's where's he alluded to? From Chet Eitz Hadas. Now we know that the Chet Eitz Hadas is what put the Yetzer Hara, inside of us. It used to be externally manifest in the serpent, right? And then because of Chet Eitz Hadas, the rock became internal. That's the Yetzer Hara that gives us doubts and makes us look at life as full of contradictions. That's just the beginning of going into the fake idea that you have to choose one side over another, and that's what inevitably leads to bad choices, which are sins. All right, so you can understand with that what it means. Muhammad Hashem ba'amolek midor dor, right? Because the Chet Adam Rishon, right, is something that's only going to be fixed by all the generations combined, because we're talking about uprooting the Yetzer Hara himself. Amalek, as opposed to the other nations of the world, right, is the Yetzer Hara himself. The other nations of the world, they're not innately evil. As we learned in Derech Hashem, they may have come about kind of by accident, because if Adam Rishon would have not eaten from Yetzer Das, all of humanity would be what we call today Jewish. Which is another reason why we're called Goy Echad Ba'aretz, the only one nation that was meant to exist. The others, they came because humanity went down in level, and when we went from Or, Kosnos Or, with an Aleph, Adam Rishon, originally his body was vestments of light. He went from Or with an Aleph to Or with an Ayin, skin. So it says Rav Weizsäcker, that's when, if he would have remained at level, that his body was pure light, there would have been Aleph, only one nation. He went down to Or with an ayin, 70. That's why there's 70 nations. Right? It's all the... But they're not bad people innately. They have their issues. Right? They have their issues. And that's why we could be done with them, once and for all in our history. They have their issue, whatever their issue was, and the issue gets resolved. Right? But Amalek has a different role. Bilam says about Amalek, Rashis Goyim Amalek. He's the head of all nations, the first. He's an ideologue. He preaches evil. He preaches evil. And he doesn't have to be his own nation. What type of passport did Haman carry? It's Persian. It's the Persian prime minister. Right? Just like Ilhan Omar has an American passport. Right? Amalek doesn't have to belong to any particular nation. He could belong to any nation. Right? He'll switch sides and infest. Whenever you see an ideologue arise amongst the nations to, incite against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, incite against the Jewish people, that's Amalek. And he could infiltrate any nation he wants. That's why you can't be done with him. He's not one type of person. He's not one nation. That's why the Torah expresses itself. The Ramchal explains. After the war with Amalek, it says, Timcha Zecher, Mocho Emcha Zecher Amalek. What is it called? Amalek. They're called Zecher. They're an idea. They don't have to be their own nation. They're a concept. It's a concept that they're like a virus that could spread from nation to nation. He is a representation of the Yetzer Hara himself, and the Yetzer Hara always switches sides. Yetzer Hara sometimes plays, extreme right, sometimes he plays extreme left, and that's Amalek. They've infested nation after nation after nation. Whenever you see a nation all of a sudden incited, to just wholesale murder of the Jews, even at their own expense, right? That's the Amalek virus. That's the Zecher Amalek. Right? He'll ride whichever train is traveling faster. Whatever issue, whatever the hot issue is. Green New Deal, whatever it is, whatever's hot, that's what he rides, rides whatever's popular, right? And he switches sides all the time, as long as the sides are not working there. Because if all the sides in reality would be working together, they would all going in the same direction, just for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just for Klal Yisrael. It's because things are not aligned, and it's in that misalignment that he thrives, right? And this alignment is the delicate balance that we of the path of halacha. Right, it's try to pull the things together, right? And the days which are our greatest days of the year currently, Tishrei and Nisan, these are times of the alignment, right? All right. Right? But it starts with understanding that all the different tracks are true, and the challenge is just to reconcile. When you think there's thesis and antithesis, right? So one is right and the other one's wrong, as if half of reality is wrong. That's apikorsus. That's like saying chas v'shalom shtei reshuyos, as if there's two domains, right? As if there's there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu and there's the whole Sitra Achra, as if the Sitra Achra is real. Sitra Achra is not real. Sitra Achra is an illusion, right? Who thrives in the perceived conflict and the misalignment of the different tracks in reality. So, and that's what Haman doesn't see. He sees always one side of the issue. Right? He'll see in Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu died then. He won't see the other side, that he was also born then. So, fish swallow. He doesn't see it's dagim. Two sides of the issue, but in his mind, or what he wants to sell, is that at any given time there's only one right way. Right? And by the way, if there's only one right way, you're going to choose the wrong way, right? Because it's more fun, A. B, right, is that seemingly you can't lose. Why? Because Mar Shiva used to point out, everyone says, crime doesn't pay and good will triumph at the end. No one really believes that. I'll tell you why. Right? It's also not logical, right? Because the good people, they have their rules, they have their red lines. They're not willing to cross. Right? The good can never use a civilian population as a human shield, for instance. Right? It's and if someone else is doing that, they don't have it in them to wholesale bomb them off the map. They don't. So what does the bad guy have to do? Right? All he has to do is take the confrontation over that red line. The good guy won't cross, and he wins. So why does good really win over evil? I just showed you it's impossible. Only because evil is not real. But if they would be equally real, evil would win all the time. The message that the good triumphs over evil is really to say is a statement that everything exists really l'shem shamayim. Evil is not real. If it would be, we'd be dead. I just explained to you why. Right? But Amalek wants to see it that way. There's the good and there's the evil, and he wants you to see it that way. There's a schism in reality, and there's a good side and there's a bad side. And in that case, you'll always go with the bad side. It's just a lot more fun. Right? That's it. Right? But it was, reality is dual, dagim, fish, multiple. Right? Reality has multiple tracks in it. It's not that the soul is good and the body's bad. The soul is good and the body's good. Right? It's double, right? Right? Double, right? You just have to train yourself. It's hard because the mind perceives that we see the conflict of how these tracks run at different speeds and run in different directions. But you got to juggle it that they're both true, and you have to find a reconciliation. Right? The idea that that reality is fractured, that's an Amalek view of the world. Now we have to overcome that. Right? And when we overcome that, we don't just survive. We have double. You have the best of both. And that's what the Medrash Rabbah says. Velkim is kasher asa, v'hinei tov mod. First time it says tov mod in the Torah. Then it says, by the rest of my Israel, Velkim ki tov. Velkim ki tov, tov. Right? There's also tov mod. Right? So what's that tov mod? That's the end of all my celebrations together. So says the Medrash Rabbah, tov ze yetzar tov. Tov ma'od ze yetzar hara. Tov ze Gan Eden. Tov ma'od ze Gehenna. Right? Etc. It goes on. Everything, tov ze achayim, tov ma'od ze amisa. All the bad stuff is tov ma'od. What? No. Because, the tov is everything that's identified as good. When we get all these things that we call bad, when we harness that track also, so it gets added to the good. So the good is already good. The tov is already tov. So the added good is tov ma'od. And ma'od is also the oisius adam, because that's man's challenge. Man's challenge is to make the reconciliation, right? And pull the other track we call that other track ra, right? Harness it and make it tov mode, and then you get kefil. Then you get double. Tov mode means you got double. You got the tov, and you have the added thing that's called tov mode. A remez to this, a remez to this is in the famous medrash in Parshas Chayei Sarah. Rabbi Kiva was giving shir, and the Talmidim were falling asleep, so he wanted to wake them up. So he threw them a riddle, right? It says, Esther reigned over 127 nations. Why? It says, come a great-granddaughter of Sarah that lived for 127 years and let her reign over 127 nations. Right? It's a medrash in Parshas Chayei Sarah. So without getting into the whole depth of it, what happens in Parshas Chayei Sarah? Right, we're taught a lesson. It was the first levaya and kvura and hesped in recorded history. 2,000 years of world history had passed. Just Torah said, died. That's all it says, right? For 2,000 years of world history, right? So after 20 generations, right? So yes, Vayava Lispol the Sorrow of Livra, for a dignified burial. First time the body was honored. First time a woman was honored. I don't want to, whatever. I'm just, without getting overly liberal, but it's the first time, in 20 generations, doesn't even mention the death of a single woman. Right? No, I don't want to fly off the handle on this. But the point is, right? And okay, and what happens are first Levaya, first has which final honors, final respects for the body. It used to be true. The body was understood to be a piece of, it was like your computer, burns out and it goes in the garbage, Yeah. First time, respect for a goof. And by no coincidence, she was buried in Ma'oras HaMachpelah, Kefel. Double. And who's buried there? Zugos. Just couples. Double. Cave was double, and couples are buried there. The message came out in Chayei Sarah, right, is, that the body is holy also. And the union between, and if sun and moon, also represent man and wife, right, the solar cycle, man, right, lunar cycle, feminine, right. The idea of the Kedusha of God, that the other side is just as holy as the first side, and the greatest good is in having the two together. You have to have that reconciliation and bring the two tracks together, not either or. And when you do that, then you have double good. Right? And that's what, so Haman threw a pur, we called Purim. Right? He sees one side of the issue. He said, no, there's two sides. And when you see that there's two sides issue, and they're both true, he loses his place to stand in reality, because he thrives on the rift. Because of Purim. No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world in two ways. Ha'aras Panim and Hester Panim, and they're both true. They're both from God. It runs at Ha'aras Panim, which is the track that everything spiritual and the neshama is created from, and Hester Panim, which all Gashmias comes from, and they're both from him. They're both true. The Ha'aras Panim makes day, the Hester Panim makes night, where the moon reigns. And we have to learn how to pull them together. Right? And that's why Purim, has to be double. The fight against Amalek is double, because we have to close the rift that he thrives on. So now, what supplements from Moshe Rabbeinu in the ensuing Milchamas Amalek for the rest of time? All right. So that's the role of Parshas Zachor. So now we have to read, Parshas Zachor before Purim. It's derived. I mean, biblically, there's no set time for it. Minhag Yisrael became to read it before Purim, and it's learned out of the pasuk in Megillah Yomel Niskarim V'Naasim, remembered and done, which by the way reflects the duality we're talking about. Niskarim, like Moshe with the hands up, reminding us everything's from Hashem, and Naasim, doing with your own two hands, like Yoshua with the sword. Niskarim V'Naasim. So we have to do the Zechira before the Asiyah. Therefore, we have to have Parshas Zachor before we actually do the mitzvahs of Purim. Right? That's what's brought down in the postscript. It all seems that this was derived, may even be post-Talmudic, this idea. But that's where it comes from. Right? So the question still remains, so why don't we do Parshas Zachor on Tanis Esther? That'll still be before Purim. Right? Right, so
where does it say that?
It's in multiple places that term is used in Megillas Esther. Remember, Niskarim V'Nasim, B'chol Dor V'Dor. It's towards the end. Perak Tes, Ches Tes. It's not in Yud. That's where it says Chashosh put taxes. He raised the taxes like the Democrats. That was in Perak Yud. Yeah. All right. So it says there's a medrash on those psukim of Parshas Zachor. It's a medrash Tanchuma in Parshas Kiseitze, where it says that it points out an irony. Shabbos and Amalek get equal treatment. Zachor is Shachar Amalek. Zachor is Yom Shabbos Lekadsho. It's crazy. Right? So the medrash gives a mashal that a king, laid out a table. He made a feast, right? And the table's laid out with cold tooth, right? It's an unbelievable spread. All right, and before everyone digs in, so he says, Zachor Ploni Oavi, I want to take out a second to remember this guy who I like. All right, fine. And then everyone gorged themselves, and from the whole spread, Lo Nishar Zecher. It was Mamash Timcha Zecher. There was nothing left, no remnant of the food. So right before benching, the king says, okay, 1 minute, Zachor Ploni Soni. I want to take out a second to remember this guy whose guts I hate. Right? So they asked him, L'zeis kar to l'zeis kar. He gave them equal treatment. Took out a moment of silence to remember this one. Took out a moment of silence to remember that one. Said, no. This one was al shulchan mole kol tuv. This is what I remembered on a table laden with all good. This other guy was on an empty table. So also says the Medrash on Shabbos. We're manigas a Shabbos. Right? We have our tables laden with all good when we say Kiddush. Right? Right? So, and we remember the Shabbos. Now, what's a table laden with all good means? Full, real, reality. Right? And Amalek, we remember in context of Timcha Zecher Amalek. Remember him, we're supposed to obliterate in that context. Right? What I mean, oblivion. Right? On Shabbos, Shabbos, supplements from Moshe Rabbeinu's role. That's why Zohar has to be on Shabbos, the Zechira that he did with his hands, that on Shabbos we remember everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He created heaven and earth. And the full table of Shabbos, the full table you're supposed to have at the time when you say Kiddush, is to remind you Shabbos is reality. It is what is. It's full. What is. Amalek you're supposed to remember in context of is not. He's not real. He thrives on the perceived conflict between the different tracks in reality. So you have to see him for the nothing that he is. But you can only see him for the nothing that he is by the contrast of seeing reality for what it is. And that's Shabbos. That's Shabbos. And that's also what it means. In Medrash and Parshas Kisisa on Shabbos, Moshe Rabbeinu gives us back the ksarim of Naasev and Nishma. Right? He gives us back the crowns that we lost. When we got the crowns, we said Naasev Nishma. Chedek we lost. He gives us back those crowns on Shabbos. The idea of Naasev before Nishma is hands over your head. I'll do, even before I hear, I'll do more than what I understand. That's like Moshe Rabbeinu's hands up. He gives us back those crowns on Shabbos. Right? Shabbos is what stands, in place of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why Shabbos Zachor is like an integral part of Purim. Right, because the Milchomot Amalek is always fought on two levels. It's always fought with Emunah and Bitachon, and also with Hishtadlus, because we have to undo, right? We have to pull together, right? Pull together the schism, right? That the schism, the perceived schism in reality that he thrives on. So Parshas Zachor during Shabbos, why we're koveh during Shabbos, because the Shabbos for Purim is a part of Purim. It's the Moshe Rabbeinu aspect with the hands up. Right, whereas Purim, of course, is the day that's connected Yoshua. Right? And that's why there had to be 2 days of Purim. Esther pushed for 2 days of Purim. The idea is that the doubleness of Purim is, that the... Right, aside from the fact that it's about pulling both tracks together, or the two different sides of reality together, the Horus Purim and the Hester Purim, but there's something about Purim that it was not just for the present, it's for the sake of the future. Muhammad Hashem Ba'amalek Midor Dor. As we said before, we quoted the Chazal, Purim is the one holiday we're going to keep in the future, like Yom Kippur. And we'll get back in a second. We're almost done, right? But Purim, is about the present, and it's also about the future, and that's why it's legitimate, right, to keep Purim, even though Amalek is still around, right? Because it's the power not just to get over him, at the time, but it also builds a it aligns the universe moving towards that great future, that Vahaya Orla Levana Korachama, the end of time, right? The moon and the sun will be at the same size and run at the same speed. And we're not going to have this schism in reality anymore. So when it says Yinosin Gam Mocher LiYehudim, in order to make it really Purim, that it's all about everything. So it means Purim has to also be about pushing the world forward, right, towards that time when all the tracks in reality are reconciled. So she said, Yinosin Gam Mocher LiYehudim. Right, Mocher, is means the future. Like Hayom La Sosam Umocher Lekabel Schoram. Right? And they made Shushan Purim, dependent on walls. Right? That's why I have to build the wall. Between Mukaf Chol and Moshe Yoshua ben walls are good. Right? Because the idea is like this. Right? They asked the Nachash, right? There's a Medrash. They asked the Nachash, Lama Ton Motzei Ben Agderes. It seems that under fences where you find snakes. They said, Ani Paratzti Gidro Shalom, because I'm the one who broke the wall, the cosmic wall. Right, because he made us do the Chet Eitz Hadas, which brought the Yetzer Hara in. And the Yetzer Hara is what, in our skulls, is what gives us doubts. And whenever there's like a little bit of a question, of how to reconcile something, he jumps into that doubt, and he widens the rift and gets us to do things we later regret, right? That's called that the wall was broken. The wall held everything together, unified. Right? Shushan Purim is the Purim of the future, right? Because Milchama Hashem Ba'amalek Midor Dor. It's a generation to generation battle. So Purim had to have something about the present. That's Purim the present, and for the sake of the future, when the cosmic wall will be rebuilt. But now you understand, that these two chagim, which are big days of reconciliation, and when there's reconciliation, right? So the evil, has no place to stand. So regarding Yom Kippur, we know there's no Yetzer on Yom Kippur. The Gemara says Has Satan is Gematria 364, like this, but the solar cycle's 365. So the Gemara says there's one day the Yetzer Hara doesn't work, Yom Kippur. That's 365th day. Which is what we said. That's when the solar cycle completes its revolution and catches up to the lunar cycle. It's next year. 365th day is Yom Kippur, right? And that's where the gap is closed, right? And all the 10 days in between, we're doing, those are the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, doing tshuva for all the failures that resulted because of the rift, right? So on Yom Kippur, the gaps are closed. And that's why on Yom Kippur, it could be a day of an extreme, and it's not bad. It's not bad, because when the two tracks are firmly closed, so if you have a little bit of fun, spiritual fun, right, and you go to the extreme of Yom Kippur, it's, if you're not too hungry and if you're not too tired, it's a great day. It's a lot of, it's not the pshat, so you go off to the direction of the spirit and you leave the body behind. Right? No, the body follows, because they're perfectly reconciled. So the body enjoys, the trip, the adventure. And the same thing happens on Purim, right? The great reconciliation, right? That the rift that is Ra, that's between the tracks is resolved. So, it's a day of the body. You don't leave the spirit behind. Spirit goes with you. Now you could have extreme good because the two tracks are in perfect state, that they don't separate. So one enjoys a vacation in the one's turf, one enjoys vacation in the other one's turf. And that way, that's the depth of what the Gaon says. In the big picture, it's a balance. These are 2 days of extreme. In the big picture, it's the balance because, of course, all parts of reality are equally true and equally right. And that's what it is. So it's one day. So Yom Kippur could be a day kulo la Hashem, and that's also called good. It's not a violation of, it's not called punishing the body, right? And Purim could be a day kulo lachem, and it's not called punishing the spirit. Because on these days, the two tracks are in perfect unity. They go together, and one follows the other to the other one's turf. Right, and that's what's so special about Purim in general, but Purim during a leap year, right? During leap year, which is it's all about balancing these two cycles, right? Balancing the two cycles, is what the function of leap year, and that's what, so Adar, Haman thought it's the furthest month away from Nisan, which was our strong month. We're toast. And that's the irony. Adar is the month that balances out and gets us back to Nisan, not just on the calendar, but also keeps Nisan in the spring. Adar restores the balance. And it restores the balance by being doubled. Understanding the two Adars, the Dagim, understanding that all sides to the issue are all equally true. It's just our job to balance them, and the conflict between them is only perceived and not real, and we have to overcome that perception to beat Amalek. Okay, thank you very much. 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 Okay, thank